Hello to everyone, and welcome back to uh, RPS at Home Week 7 math course. And as you can see, some things have changed. This pandemic is real. But we're going to start today with day one of SOL 611. My name is Jamie Espinal. I'm a sixth grade math teacher at Elkhart Thompson Middle School, and I just want to really congratulate you for sticking to it. You know, you're still learning, you're still grinding. Here we are in May, and you're still checking in, and I think that's terrific. It's been tough, but when we get back to our regularly scheduled program, those expectations are still going to be high. And so, you doing this now, it's just a terrific sign. And I just wanted to congratulate you for that before we begin this series. So, moving forward here, okay, the way that we're going to be able to keep up with what's going on in this video series is we're going to use Nearpod, okay? So you see the information here on your screen, right? You're going to go to joinnearpod.com, right? When you enter that, you're going to see that it's going to say, it's going to look for a session code, right? So the student join session code is seen here. You're going to type in OAYVW and do it all caps, just to be sure. I believe it is case sensitive. Um, and you'll see here that this is valid through June 6th. Okay, so we have about 29 days from this moment here where I'm recording before it actually goes online, but we have until June 6th to get these complete. So I'll leave it open. And what I want you to do is make sure that you enter your name when prompted. And then there's going to be another box. And in that other box, I want you to give me your student ID number, right? Type in your student ID number. And with that, I'm going to see if I can get what you submit to the relevant people. If not, I'll comment on it. But I want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can, and if you want extra work, then you can go and you'll see that I'll have some worksheets available for you to take this even further if you would like. Okay, so that's the way that we'll be doing this series, and I'll remind you about these things, and you could do that right now, right? And then you're just going to wait for me when prompted. I kind of want to get into a little bit of a prior knowledge thing right now. I want to see what you remember from your fifth grade math courses. So we're going to look at 611. We're not really going to get into the balance point just yet today. We're going to cover that really tomorrow. I just want to make sure we understand how to calculate the mean first and foremost, right? And we're going to talk about some other things as well. But the objective reads the student will represent the mean of a data set graphically as the balance point, okay? Now, before we get too far into this, I want to make sure you understand a couple things really, all right? Categorical data versus numerical data, okay? So if we look at it, we'll compare the two. Categorical data looks something like this, right? Where it could be anything really. It could be a circle graph, whatever, but it breaks up your data into categories. So let's talk about a normal day, right? You eat, you sleep, you do schoolwork, you do chores, right? Hopefully you're doing a bunch of that, considering what we've been dealing with um, here recently. And then we have numerical data, right? And now numerical data is the numbers for each of those categories or whatever the topic of discussion is, okay? So I want to make sure you understand that. We're going to look at numerical data today, all right? So uh, I'm not sure if you're aware that this is the International Measurement Month, May. All right. And so today, what we're going to be measuring is sleep. And I know that, or I hope that you've been getting a good amount of sleep lately. But this is what we're going to use. All right. We're gonna talk about hours of sleep. Okay. So to get into that, and let me make sure we have this entire thing on the screen here. Um, so I'll read this and then we'll talk about how are we gonna answer this question. So Robert, a sixth grader at Roosevelt Middle School, usually goes to bed around 10 p.m. and gets up around 6 a.m. to get ready for school. That means he gets about 8 hours of sleep on a school night. He decided to investigate the statistical question, how many hours per night do sixth graders usually sleep when they have school the next day? Robert took a survey of 29 sixth graders and collected the following data to answer the question. All right, so I'm not going to say all the responses, but these are 29 responses here from those sixth graders, and this data does not include Robert. Okay. But uh, so what we need to talk about is how do we show this type of data? Because right now, the way that we're looking at it right now, it's really hard to um, make any type of determination in answering the question, how many hours per night do sixth graders usually sleep when they have school the next day? Looking at this, it might even feel a little chaotic. Okay, so if you remember from last year, we did you did stem and leaf plots, right? And they look like this. And here's an example of what that data would look like if we had a stem and leaf plot. And the stem and leaf plot is nice because it organizes and um, it's good in that sense. But in this case here, because we're dealing with ones and tens, it's really hard to even, it's kind of hard to still get a good picture of what's going on with this data. And so Robert decided to make a line plot of the data to help him answer his statistical question. Robert first drew a number line, labeled it 5 to 12 to match the lowest and highest number of hours slept. Robert's datum is not included. All right, so here we're looking at this line plot, okay, and I'm going to go through it pretty quickly on how do we make a line plot with that data. So I included the data from his survey, right? And so you look at it, the first seven, right? The first number is 7. What we do is we put an X representing that number in the survey, okay? So for every number, there's an X, and you see it's slightly shaded because now that number is taken care of, okay? If we go to the next number, it's 8, we put an X. The next number is 5, we put an X. Now, I want you to pay close attention here because now you'll see that there are 3 nines in a row, okay? So we're going to put the first 9 down, and I want you to think for a second, all right? What do you think we do with the next 9 since there's already an X at that number? Well, if you said you put the X on top, you're correct, okay? So that's what you are going to be doing, right? Another X you put on top, right? So now I want you to do the rest, okay? So you can go ahead and pause the video, all right? And I want you to go through the data, and this is where you would do it on your Nearpod, okay? And on your Nearpod, I want you to draw, and though Nearpod is mobile friendly, right? Meaning it can work on a phone, putting all this information on a phone, it's going to be tight unless you have a really large screen. But in this case right here, it's a lot easier if you're using your laptop. So I want you to complete this, right? Again, you can pause the video, complete it, and then come back and you can, and I'll go through it and you can check to see if you did it correct. Okay, so assuming you've paused the video, let's go over what it looked like, and hopefully it looks like what we're about to do. Okay, so your line plot should look like so. Okay, you have all these X's, 29 of them, and each X represents a response for all of the responses from the 29 students. Okay, So how many hours per night do sixth graders usually sleep when they have school the next day? Okay, so to answer this question, let's get into a little bit of what you did last year, right? So what number of hours slept occurred most often in this data set? What would you say to that? Well, if you said 9, you're absolutely correct. Okay. Um, what about this question? What number of hours slept is the middle number of hours? Okay. Well, if you remember from last year, what we had to do is we had to line up all of our numbers from least to greatest, all 29 of them in our case. Okay. And what you do is you kind of eliminate for every lowest number, you get rid of a highest number. You're getting rid of pairs of numbers. For every lowest number, you get rid of another highest number. And what ends up happening is eventually you'll get to that middle number. Okay. So that middle number in this case would be 9 hours of sleep. So the mode was the most was 9 hours of sleep, and the middle was 9 hours of sleep. And then we have what number of hours slept represents the fair share. Okay, again, something that you talked about last year. Do you remember how to find the fair share? Well, if you remember, what you had to do was you had to add up all the numbers, all 29 of them, okay? And then you had to make sure that you found the sum, right, first before you divided it by 29 because there's 29 people represented, all right, in this line plot, okay? And when you do that, you'll see it's 8.7, okay? Everything we're going to be doing rounding wise, we're going to round everything to the nearest tenth today. Okay, and I decided to do that because when you did circles with me way back in week 4, we rounded to the nearest hundredth. All right, so for this series of videos, we're going to practice rounding to the nearest tenth. Okay, so the fair share of hours slept is 8.7. Okay, I kind of gave away the answer a little bit earlier, but what we're talking about here is called the central measures of tendency. Okay, so let's talk about these things. All right, the fair share. All right, if you remember from last year, the fair share is also known as the mean. Okay, the middle number. Okay, the number of data set is the median. The middle number of a data set is the median. And then finally, the number that occurs the most frequently is the mode, all right? And if you remember from our example, all right, the fair share, it was 8.7, okay? The median was 9, and the mode was also 9 hours, right? So this is the data that we got from the survey. Okay, these are the central measures of tendency. Okay, now for independent practice, here's what you're going to do. Okay, I'm going to spell it out a little bit, all right, and then you are going to go about doing the work on your own. And again, I want you to submit this work. Make sure you submit it using the Nearpod again. That way I can get your work, all right, and provide some type of commentary, whether it's from me or your own teacher or somebody from your school, okay? I'll read the question, and then it'll be up to you to complete. All right, so the question reads, oh, excuse me, Robert surveyed a dozen students from his class recently to determine if their sleeping habits had been affected because of COVID-19. The number of hours which include Robert's sleep were recorded as follows, right? So these are those same students. He didn't get everybody, okay, but he got a dozen of them, right? He got 12 of them plus himself, okay? So here you'll see that there are 13 numbers here. To conclude if their sleeping habits have been affected, A, you're going to draw a line plot of the new data. Okay, so I want you to make a line plot of the new data, and then you're going to determine the central measures of tendency. Again, the mean, median, and the mode. And then I want you to compare his previous data to the new data. on how it's and how their sleep has been affected. Remember, the median and the mode from the original survey was 9 hours, and the mean was 8.7 hours. Okay, so I want you to work on that and then compare that to see how does that compare to the previous survey. Okay, and with that, okay, what I want you to do is uh, put the information in here, and don't forget, I want you rounding to the nearest tenth when it comes to the mean. Again, this is on your Nearpod. Go ahead and do that work now, and tomorrow for day 2, we'll go over your answers, okay, and we'll check to see how well you did on that. All right, so hope to see you again tomorrow. Very good job today. All right. And I look forward to seeing what you submit. All right. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.